Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Dave Brown here, and today I wanted to help answer a question I often get asked. Should I learn the ukulele or should I learn the guitar? Both have pros and cons, mainly pros, but some distinct differences. So we're going to get into the differences. We're going to get into some basics of strumming so we get you off on the right foot. I'm even going to teach you a song that you can play on either instrument, same chord shapes and everything. So if you have access to either of these instruments or both, you can kind of get started today, see which one feels right. Who knows, maybe we'll find you an instrument by the end of this, but worst case scenario is we'll have a little fun. So let's get at it. All right, so we're gonna kick this off with the ukulele. The reason being is because it's pretty darn approachable, okay? There's only 4 strings. And in fact, this one, the way it's tuned, if you're thinking in terms of scales, it's really just 3 strings. The strings are nylon. People call them plastic, but they're nylon. So it's easier on the fingers as opposed to steel strings like a guitar. The frets are closer together because it is smaller. And it's travel size. It's a wee little thing. It's great for, hopping on a plane or going camping. The guitar is pretty portable too, but this clearly has the guitar beat as far as portability goes. Again, both of them are very portable, but it's easier to get this thing on a plane than it is in guitar, but right now it doesn't really matter with COVID anyway. I'm sure there's plenty of room in the overhead. But that is the pros to this thing. I would say the cons is it has a restrictive range. Because this one string is an octave up compared to what it would be on the guitar. I'll tell you how it kind of compares to the guitar later, because it's basically the same exact tuning. So everything that you learn on this can transfer over, which is good. So if you want a quick foot in the door, this thing is great. Oh, I forgot about a pro. This thing is definitely cheaper than a guitar. So if you want a smaller, that's one of the best pros there is. I don't know how I almost forgot it. It tends to be more enticing when it's cheaper, doesn't it? So that's a pro. But back to the cons, it's a restrictive range, meaning there's only so high and low you can go. And that means the amount of chords you can play, the amount of types of things you can play is restricted. It's very limited. Because of that, the repertoire is limited as well. Clearly, it's a Hawaiian native instrument. So obviously there's standard Hawaiian repertoire, and you can play very popular songs on. A lot of popular songs have written on it, and Jason Mraz, I'm Yours, Jack Johnson tunes. And you can fake it. Like I've even taught Ozzy Osbourne tunes on this thing before, but it's not meant for that kind of thing. You can fake it, but again, if that would be sort of a con, that if you really wanted to have the ability to expand farther into things, that you could do so. More so on the guitar, that is, rather than the uke. And I will say that tuning stability depends on how good of a ukulele you get. They tend to, anything with nylon strings tends to slip a little faster than steel strings, but especially in the price point that most people are buying ukuleles at, somewhere between $40 and $100, it tends to not be the greatest. They'll hold. Some of them are worse than others, but generally speaking, what you want to look for are the machines in the back. Okay, so you don't want cheap things. You want metal gears. You want to see that. That's going to help. Those machine heads will hold the tune better, and that will make your life a lot easier. I think that covers it for the pros and cons. Did I mention it's portable? It's pretty portable. It's pretty wee. So let's talk about basic strum concepts. Then I'll teach you some chords, and then we'll learn a song. Today's song that we're going to check out is Stand By Me by Benny King. There's a whole bunch of tunes we could pull from, but I don't know. I feel like it's a timeless classic. It's a good excuse to learn the island strum. We'll talk about what the island strum is in a minute. But until then, I can only pick one song, so my apologies if it wasn't your first choice. I'm sure there's other videos out there that will help you with that if you want to learn other tunes. But, so, general strumming logic. First of all, holding the ukulele. It's so tiny that you tend to kind of hug it against your body. Now, I'm primarily a guitar player, so I tend to lean it against my leg. That's totally fine too. Wherever it's just stable, you don't want to be chasing it, you know what I'm saying? Strumming, you know, people tend to use their index finger. I tend to basically do that, but reinforce it with my thumb, almost like I'm pretending like I'm holding a pick. And then essentially when I go down, it's the fingernail on my index finger going through, and then coming back up, it's kind of the skin underneath the bottom of the pad, essentially. And so the logic with strumming that a lot of beginners tend to look over, their teachers don't tell them, or they're learning from YouTube and they don't get it, is that strumming is timing. Okay, it's completely intertwined with how we count music and how we tap our foot. Okay, so for instance, most music that we're listening to, including the song we're going to be learning today, is in 4/4. Now, we don't need to go crazy overboard on that, but essentially what 4/4 means is you're counting to 4 over and over and over again. So every time you tap your foot, every time you strum down, that's what we call a quarter note going by. That's a black note. So for instance, I'll teach you a C chord really quick. C chord would be a ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. This is an A. Tuning, P.S., is going to go G, C, E, A. Traditionally, you would say, my dog has fleas, but we have fancy tuners now that can help you tune it. But that's the idea. So if you put your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, frets meaning these little pieces of metal, so right before the piece of metal is the sweet spot. So if you put your ring finger right there, that's a C chord. Pretty easy, right? And so again, the general strumming logic is if you're playing quarter notes, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're strumming down as your foot's hitting the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now, here's something that you probably weren't even aware of. In order to do that, once I say it, you will be, but in order to do that down strum, you have to skip over the strings in order to do another down strum. So you have to do an up strum where you don't hit the strings. And in between that, that's when your foot's going in the air, your arm's going up, your foot's going up. That is consistent. That's what you want to do. So basically, you can fit another note in between those quarter notes. Those are called eighth notes. So it's 1, and in order to count them, you would say and when your foot goes in the air. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and essentially what strumming is, any sort of strum pattern, is basically going to be that logic and then choosing when not to hit the strings. Okay, so for instance, you could have 2 quarters followed by 4 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And okay, so what I did is I skipped over the and of 1 and the and of 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And now you don't need to count it the whole time. If you're just playing quarter notes, you can just say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And today's strum pattern that we're really going to work on today is called the island strum. And the reason why I wanted to go through all of that kind of stuff was because it's going to involve a miss on the down strum as well. And that is not as logical to players right off the bat, but it's literally the exact same logic as missing the strings on the way up as you're going for another down strum, just in reverse. Okay, so if we're doing that, technically what the strum pattern is, it's going to start with a quarter note. It's going to go 1. So that means we're going to skip over the and of 1. So we'll have 2 downs in a row. Down, skip, down, up. So that's 2 and then on beat 3, it's held through. Okay. So essentially we're just going to miss the down strum of 3, but that'll strategically place our hand right below the string so we can go up, down, up after and, 4, and. So it's going to go 1, 2, and skip, and 4, and, or 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so any downbeat that I miss, I tend to whisper, just kind of keep track of it. But that's a strum. 2 and 4, and now there's a different feel between straight and swing. Straight would be 50-50 divisions of the beat, so it's like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and that's going to be a little more of the feel that we're dealing with today. But you can swing it too. So swing would be like 66, 33 divisions of the beat, meaning that the first note's a little longer. And what ends up happening is the second of the two notes tends to fall into the next one, so it feels like a heartbeat, like. So it's. So notice it's a little more bouncier as opposed to. Versus. That's the only difference. It's subtle. It's not make or break, depending on if you're playing with other people or not. But that's the idea. So we're already pretty much halfway through the song, so we might as well teach you the rest of the chords. The next chord we're going to learn is an A minor. Okay, so you're just going to take your middle finger and put it on the fourth string. Again, we're counting from the bottom up. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the G string, second fret. Okay, so that's A minor. That's all it is. It's pretty easy. So again, C, A minor, right? F is basically going to be A minor. You're just going to put your first finger down on the second string first fret. Okay? And then let's just review that at that point. So it's going to go two strum, that strum pattern twice through. Now, here's another important thing about beginning strumming. It takes some time to get to the next chord. So you need to utilize something I like to call up on garbage, meaning you can kind of throw away the chord on the and of 4 and just strum literally all open strings or part of the next chord, depending on what you need to get to it. So it'd be like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3. Now, when you're going from A minor to F, all you have to do is put your first finger down, so you don't really need to do that up strum on garbage. However, going from F to our last chord that we got to learn today, G, is going to be quite the switch. So you're definitely going to want to utilize this up strum on garbage, and you're definitely going to want to practice going back and forth between these two chords, F and G. Okay? So again, F is your middle finger on the fourth string, second fret, first finger on the first fret of the second string. Then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of switch your first and second finger. So your middle finger is going to go down towards the ground, index finger on the second fret of the first string, that is. First finger is going to go to the second fret on the third string. I like to think of that as like air quotes, or I tell little kids bunny ears. Then we're going to put our ring finger in between on the third fret of the second string. So it kind of makes a little triangle. That's a G chord. So again, half of your practice, if you're just getting used to these chords, should just be down on one chord, up on garbage, down on the next chord, up on garbage. If you can get that fast, you will be good. So, that being said, here's the whole song. So the first chord is the last chord. One more time. So I mentioned that you're doing two strums per each chord. That was a slight lie. You're doing two strums on the C, two strums on A minor, only one strum on F, one strum on G, two strums on C. That's the whole thing. My bad. Another option that you could play, if you're listening to it, you can think about the bass line. It's like doom doom doom, boom doom doom. Doom, doom, doom. So you can hit those hits. You can go boo doo. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the chord, muting with my right hand, and then playing again. So it's like doo doo doo, doo doo doo, boo doo, boo doo, boo doo. right, so now we're on to the guitar. Clearly bigger, which means it has a larger range, which means you can play more interesting voicings. Voicings meaning chords. You can play just bigger scales, more of everything. The repertoire is virtually unlimited for the guitar. There's so many different genres and songs that you can play. It's never ending. It's a lot of fun. And the great thing about it is, like, you can still just do the entry level thing, learn a couple chords, play some songs around a campfire, but you can go way deeper, way deeper. It's not to say that you can't go fairly deep on the ukulele, but the guitar just offers a lot more. I will say, you know, obviously it's got the steel strings, so that's going to hurt your fingers a little bit. It's not as portable as a ukulele, but it's still portable. Like, you can still bring it to campfires. You can bring it on planes if you need to. Generally in the overhead with a gig bag is the way to go, or a hard shell down below, but it's still portable. And it will cost you more, generally speaking. You can find a decent working guitar off Craigslist for, like, you know, $100-$200 if you need to. Generally speaking, I'd recommend spending somewhere between like $350 and $600, just because people tend to be hesitant, especially if it's your very first instrument ever, on spending a lot of money, which I get it. If you don't have a lot of money right off the bat, you don't want to have to invest too much money, which is, you know, if that's a huge concern, a ukulele is definitely cheaper. But if you can afford to not have that money in your pocket right now, the nicer you go, the better it's going to play. It's going to make your life easier. So, you know, some guitars or ukuleles tend to be difficult to play. The action, the strings, how far they're close to the neck is really far, and it tends to make you work harder. So sometimes people think they suck, but it's really just their guitar that sucks, not them, you know? So going nicer tends to help you play better. It makes you want to play more because it's really nice. It's a better experience. And worst case scenario is if you have to sell it, you're not out that much money. You know, you're still going to make more money back. So it's worth the investment to go more expensive. You don't need to go crazy, but always find the instrument that speaks to you. Anyway, that's the pros and cons of a guitar. So let's get into learning the song. Again, we're going to learn it just like we did the ukulele. In fact, I'm capoed at the 5th fret because these 4 strings, the bottom 4 strings on the guitar, technically 1, 2, 3, and 4, are that of a ukulele. Now you notice that 4th one, it's an octave up from this, so the range again is more on the guitar, especially because you have 2 strings above it, but it still gets the job done. The ukulele, that is, but guitar has more. So the good news is, if you already learned the ukulele and you want to go to the guitar, you already know some shapes. Likewise, if you already know the guitar, you can pick up the ukulele like no problem. So we're going to learn exactly the same thing, exact same shapes that we did, and we're just going to try to avoid these strings. Now, I'm using a pick. So generally holding a pick, you like to match it up with your thumb like this. Index finger goes below it, and essentially you don't want to do that where the index finger kind of goes out and points down the barrel of the pick towards the point. It needs to be sort of slightly off-centered and nice and relaxed so it can kind of flop back and forth. So again, my thumb's at the edge. That's pretty good. Hopefully you can see it. It's better to have somebody there to correct it for you. But essentially that's what we're going for. So if we just make a C, that's all you got to do. A minor, F, and G. So that's literally exactly the same thing. Okay. That's the basic option, if you can transfer the ukulele over to the guitar immediately. However, guitar has some fuller chord options, and they're actually called something else in the guitar world. So normally, this is technically we're in the key of C, because even though this is considered a G chord in the key and the guitar, when you're in open position, since we are capoed, it is technically a C chord. But we're going to call them what they are on the guitar. So for instance, this C that's on the ukulele, if you replace your ring finger with your pinky and put your middle finger on the second fret of the second, technically the second fret above that capo on the fifth string, ring finger on the sixth string, you have that, okay? So ring finger on the sixth string, third fret, middle finger on the second fret of the fifth string, pinky all the way down to the first string. Some people have trouble with that, that's okay. You can use 1, 2, and 3. But if you're going to a C chord, which is technically an F on the ukulele, let's take a look at that while we're already on topic. There's that F on the ukulele. If you put your ring finger down on the fifth string, third fret, that's technically a C chord on the guitar, okay? So the reason why I recommend 2, 3, and 4, even though it's difficult for some people, is because when you go to a C, all you have to do is drag your middle finger and ring finger down, put your first finger down, take your pinky off. Okay, so that's the G chord, and then it's going to go to E minor, which was just one finger before, now it's going to be 2. So you're going to take your middle finger and move it to the fifth string, second fret, ring finger is going to replace the fourth string, second fret. That's your E minor. You can play all 6 strings for that. So you got G, all 6 strings, E minor, all 6 strings. We just learned a C, so if you make an F like on a ukulele, but then put your ring finger on the fifth string, that's your C. You don't want the sixth string with that. It's a little not as pretty. And then a G chord on the ukulele is a D chord on the guitar. Okay, and so you can do that same strum pattern. Up on garbage is still an option. So, to recap, ukulele, tiny, relatively cheap, easy on the fingers, easy to get up and running. Guitar, a little bigger, a little harder on the fingers, a little more expensive, a lot more awesome. I'm biased, clearly I'm biased towards the guitar. There's just a lot more you can do. There's a lot more room to grow. But again, they're both fun. They're both portable. They're both great ways to meet people and have fun. As far as like, if I had to like start to tell you who exactly I recommend these for, when I'm recommending ukulele, it's great for little kids, like ages 4 to 8, to kind of just mess around on. It's great, you know, anybody who wants to learn it can learn it. So it's great for adults who want little to no commitment and or something portable and fun. And it's really great for kids because it's perfect size for them. It doesn't hurt their fingers. It's not a huge financial commitment. So always great for kids. Guitar, I don't usually, probably the youngest I recommend or end up teaching is 5, but usually it's more in the 6 to 8 range. I find 8 to 13 is pretty much perfect for starting kids. And then, you know, usually it's sparked. A lot of my better students are between the ages of 13 and 22 because they got a lot of energy. They're super excited about all this music they're hearing, and the guitar can do all of it. So they want to do all of it. Again, it's great for adults too. It's just whatever kind of speaks to you. Neither of these is really off the table, except for the guitar for young kids. But even I've seen like 3-year-olds play guitar. Again, it's probably more 6 to 8 range that I would probably recommend getting them started, or maybe even a little later. For little kids, I would recommend just having these around the house, either guitar or the ukulele, as sort of a toy that's meant to be respected, obviously. And for everyone else, they're still toys. They're still fun. Hopefully this helped. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you soon.